Welcome back. We are going to continue our discussion on methods of proof, right? So for today, we're going to look at a new method of proof for evaluating arguments. So we did truth tables. We're now going to look at natural deduction rules, right? So natural deduction rules is something that we use on a daily basis, right, to discern whether or not to take a particular action. Right. So let me pose this scenario. If you are in traffic, right, you get caught up in traffic, right, and you are in a hurry, right, you'll be pushed to do certain actions that you would not normally do if you are not in a hurry, right? You might change the route, right? Some have a tendency of creating a new lane of their own off-road, and some will grow impatient, and so forth. So something that you normally wouldn't do, right? When you are late, but because of that particular scenario, you are late, you can end up doing something. Right? So natural deduction rules exist within our thought process. It exists within systems around us. Legal system, for example, we've just mentioned, right? What are we doing when it comes to natural deduction rules? We are saying, based on the information available to us, what is the best decision? If we're looking at logic, we're saying, overall, is it valid or is it not valid, the argument, based on all the premise that have been given and the conclusion that has been reached? So that's what we're looking at essentially. So these natural deduction rules are derived straight from the operators or usage of the operators thereof. So we can start looking at some of them in a bit, but for formalization, let's look at what the definition of this natural deduction, or in other words, inference, means. Right. So natural deduction refers to a class of proof systems. Right. Before getting to this module, you would have come across proof by induction. It's another proof system that exists. Right. But this natural deduction, it is composed of simple and self-evident inference rules. And this is important to understand, especially when you're attempting the questions. They are simple and self-evident. The rule has to be there at your thumb to say, okay, is this rule that I'm using? Right? If it becomes too complicated, or if you start doubting your rule, probably it is not correct, because they're supposed to be simple and self-evident. Right? So they are based upon methods of proofs and traditional ways of reasoning. Right? We are already reasoning, so we have natural deduction rules that we've set up. Right? So one way of putting it is, people do go on dates, and based on how it goes, one can deduce how to proceed further with the person. Right? So they are simple simple rules that you have built up over time to make sure, or to defend you, or to protect you, and make sure that you get to a good decision. So we'll see that these inference rules we're going to look at that derive directly from operators that are already discussed. And the goal is to investigate each operator and see what we can come up with as rules. Right. So let's look at conjunction. Conjunction and but, common terms used, right? The truth table for conjunction says a conjunction of two statements is only true if and only if both of them are true. Right. So if P is true and Q is true, then P and Q is also true. So this is simply a rule we can take. The only time that a conjunction is true is when it is when the statements building up the conjunction are true individually. That is the only time when a conjunction is true. So we see here, if you are given that phi is true and this is true, then we can conclude that the conjunction of the two is true. And we call that rule conjunction introduction. Right. So this is a rule. It is simple and self-evident. Right? From here, there is no other scenario where a conjunction can be true except for when it is true. Can we have a natural deduction rule for false? No, because if we know that a conjunction is false, this can be true and this one false, this can be false, this one true, or both can be false. There is no simple and self-evident rule supporting knowledge or a deduction rule for us to come up with a deduction rule to say, since P and Q is false, it means that P is false. There is no straight-cut way of doing that. But there is a straight-cut way of saying if P and Q is true, the only time that that is correct is when both P and Q are true individually. Right. So that is called conjunction introduction, is the first natural reduction rule. Right. The reverse is true. Right. If someone comes and tells you that P and Q is true, automatically what should come to mind is that both of these are true individually. So if you're given this to be true, then this can be true individually. And if you're given this can be, it means that you can conclude that the second one can be true as well. So we say this is conjunction elimination, right? On position one. This is position one. This is conjunction elimination on position two. This is position two. Right. So these are the two rules that are associated with conjunction. Right. Now, another rule that we can look at is called the double negation elimination. It's pretty straightforward. If you negate, if something is true and you negate it, it becomes false. If you negate it again, it becomes true. Right, so you can have phi, for example. Let's look at it from a truth table. It can be true or it can be false. If you negate phi, you're going to have false, true. If you negate not phi, you're going to have true, false. So this becomes equivalent to that. So the double negation of a statement is equivalent to that statement in terms of truth value. And then we call that double negation elimination. And then the statement is equivalent to its double negation statement. So that's double negation introduction. Right. So far we've learned three rules. Number one, conjunction introduction, conjunction elimination, and four rules, in fact, elimination and double negation introduction. Right. At the end of our natural deduction rules, what you will see is that all of these will be used interconnectedly, and then we're going to investigate how that is done.